Next item, topical issue, is in the name Deputy Clare Daly. The implications for students following the closure of All Hallows College in Dublin.
Yep.
Call on the Deputy.
Yeah, thanks very much, Ceann Corla, and I appreciate that the issue isn't in the Minister's department, but I decided that it was important to put it on the Dáil record even without an Education Minister being present, because of the urgency in the situation, because as people know, the wind down in All Hallows has started since last week and this 30-day consultation period has commenced. Now, there was a meeting of the students in the college last night, but I'd have to say that as of now there really are no answers in the situation, and they have been informed that they won't be getting any answers from the Board of Trustees until maybe next Friday at the earliest, which is a huge cause for concern, because I think in many ways this is a unique educational facility. Many of my former airport colleagues, the SRT workers, when the SRT closed and the European monies came in, a lot of those workers did their training in All Hallows, and it is a centre of excellence really for mature students in particular, where it is an ethos of liberation through education, and they do look at things differently and develop different types of programmes, which to me I think would be a tragic loss for our education system if it was allowed to go. Now, I think there are two problems here. Currently there are about 460 students studying there. 150 of them come in under what's called the ALBA programme that I'll deal with in a minute. Obviously a number of those people will be due to graduate imminently, so if you like, they're kind of looked after because the college is now not enrolling anybody further. But they reckon it would take maybe 3 to 4 years for the students that are enrolled already to complete the studies that they have been signed up to. Now, the college itself doesn't fall under the Protection of Care Act, but they've said that they will honour it and assist students to complete their studies. But as of yet, there's no indication as to how that might take place. Now, All Hallows has linked up with DCU, with St Pat's and Mater Dei in a linkage agreement. I'd love to see that linkage agreement if it was possible, because I suppose what students are looking for is there are students there who want to continue their studies, who've paid thousands of euros in many instances for their education, many of them mature students. They have tutors and mentors there who want to continue to facilitate adult education, and really what they need is two things. They need a setting and an organisation to take them on, and they need the Department of Education and Skills to recognise this and do what they can to assist that process, because many of the degrees and programmes are facilitated by DCU. Obviously St Pat's and Mater Dei come in under that umbrella as well, and I think we have to be creative and look at that. I mean, the ALBA programme in particular is a hugely important one for mature students, and I just want to maybe deal with a person I know who's studying there, who wanted to continue and apply for a Masters in Community Development and Voluntary Work. This college has some excellent programmes in that regard. The ALBA programme has been one which AINTIS has recommended should be rolled out nationally in all organisations. It's only done there. It's a degree where prior learning is recognised, where strands of education include adult education, human development, arts and ideas, and a professional focus on areas like community development and so on. And this is something that isn't done anywhere else, and as I say, AINTIS think it should be maintained. If the government doesn't, or the department doesn't intervene here to save that programme, then it is going to be lost forever. And you know, the point that students were told last night is that they can't transfer anywhere else because of the uniqueness of the programme, and I think this is something that the department needs to address. So I suppose what I'm asking the Minister is that have the Department of Education consider what they can do here to help the students who are there presently, but in some ways, more importantly, or equally as importantly, to protect that type of education going forward, because I think it has a huge amount to offer the Irish economy and Irish society.
Thank you, Deputy. Minister.
Thank you, Cahirley. I propose to take this topical issue on behalf of my colleague, the Minister for Education and Skills, Rory Quinn, TD, and I would like to thank Deputy Daly for raising this issue this afternoon. The Department of Education and Skills was informed by All Hallows College of its intention to wind down the college. The President of the college indicated to the Department that the closure of the college would be done in an orderly manner. As the Deputy is aware, All Hallows is a private college specialising inter alia in the teaching of theology, philosophy, psychology and English literature. As the Deputy mentioned, a linkage agreement is in place between DCU and All Hallows since 2008. As a result of these agreements, All Hallows College became a college of DCU and all degrees are validated and accredited by DCU. The college is not an approved institution under the Higher Education Authority and does not receive core funding from the department. However, 3 full-time undergraduate courses in the college are approved under the department's Free Fees Initiative. Under the Free Fees Initiative, the Exchequer meets the cost of tuition fees in respect of eligible students on approved full-time courses. In the case of All Hallows, the department refunds the cost of tuition fees up to a limit of 130 students on the 3 approved courses. The college was paid some €440,000 for the 2013-2014 academic year in respect of 119 eligible students who attended the courses for the full year. A wide-ranging reform programme of the higher education system is being implemented, arising from the modernisation framework in the National Strategy for Higher Education to the year 2030. That report recommended that continuing funding supports for institutions such as All Hallows, who receive limited public funding for specific programmes, should be a matter for the Higher Education Authority and subject to ongoing review in the context of quality outcomes, overall demand and available provision within relevant regional clusters. In May 2013, the Minister set out his response to the HEA in relation to its advice on future system configuration and confirmed the approach advised. In their consideration of the limited free fees funding that is allocated to All Hallows, the HEA concluded that the existing provision should be continued. Thank you.
Thank you, Minister. Deputy?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of issues here. I mean, I think the college has developed and moved on from its theological basis, if you like, and has very much an ethos of social justice and community. As I said, it focuses particularly on mature students who want a chance a second chance at education. It very much has inspired people to undertake further voluntary and community work and is based on that entire ethos. So I think it's quite important that we would keep it. Now, as the Minister said, the problem is money. It is a private college. My understanding is, and I think it's referred to in the answer, where the state pays some monies based on the amount of students attending some courses. However, that is capped. And if there was a lifting of that cap, that might alleviate the situation. One of the solutions that's being discussed is that DCU has decided actually to accept a different combination of subjects that would actually attract more students. So without being disrespectful to anybody, dropping a lot of the theology combinations, focusing more on the other programs, and DCU has agreed that would attract more students in. But the problem is the department would need to lift the cap on that. If that was done, and I think we have to accept this is a fine educational establishment and facility on the north side of Dublin. It's a really impressive premises. It would be tragic if we lost that to educational purposes. Now, I know the college has survived and has looked at philanthropy. It's existing on the basis of endowment funds, which are depleting. They haven't got on some fees, obviously, like you know. So there needs to be an intervention. They did sell some land a few years ago, but isn't there something that we could do to step in as the state and engage in negotiations with them to try and preserve it as an educational facility when we know, based on population projections and so on, that we're going to need more educational facilities. So I would appeal to the Minister, while knowing it's not his department, but to pass it on that we really need to intervene in this. There's another meeting tonight of the ALBA students, who will be generally the mature students, but there's real worry here, and I think the government, without breaking the bank, could actually secure what is a fine educational establishment if they could look at maybe lifting the cap on the numbers in those courses. Then I think you would get more students in, and that would be enough to keep it going. They think it requires about 2 million to get through next year is what they estimate, which is not a huge amount because most of these students pay fees anyway, and as I say, a lot of them are my former colleagues in the airport and so on, and I think it's done a fine service. So I would appeal to the Minister to link up with the college and see what can be done in terms of securing it for the students there now and for those who could benefit from it in the future.
Thank you very much, Deputy. Minister.
Thank you, Caherly. Well, as has been acknowledged by the Deputy, and it's clear that All Hallows is a private college, but it is and has been a fine institution. The Deputy describes it very well, and I agree with her. If I may say so, Caherly, I know the location well because I grew up just a stone's throw away from it, so I know it very well. I know its history, and everything that she says about it and about its history and its contribution is absolutely correct. The department, as I've said, provides specific funding under the Free Fees Initiative, and I've gone through that in relation to a small cohort of the total student population. I'm not sure if I fully grasp the point that the Deputy was making in respect of the relationship with DCU and the cap. I understand the point about the cap, but in fact the cap in respect of All Hallows was not in fact reached in any of the last 3 years, which surprised me when I just read the briefing documentation here. The cap on numbers, in respect of which the free fees would be reimbursed, was 130 in 2013-14. There was 119 students availed of it. The cap was 130 for the past 3 years. There were 119 in 13-14, 121 in 12-13, 103 in 11-12, and actually 112 in 2010-2011 when the cap was 136. But the Deputy may have been making a point in relation to DCU and a possible connection with DCU.
About, and it's a case of if they could change the
mix of courses,
the mix of courses, and DCU have agreed that it might make it more attractive and get in the.
I understand that point now, and I didn't grasp it at the time, and I'll certainly communicate that to the Minister for Education, and the Deputy raises absolutely a fair point in respect of it. But I suppose not wishing to speak on behalf of the Minister directly, but I suppose the way the Minister has to operate in relation to the future planning and configuration of higher education is that he has to do it on the basis of a rational plan, which he gets from the HEA, I should say, in respect of the configuration of need and course mixes right across the third level sector. And he did receive that advice last year and is proceeding on that basis. So it's, I suppose, difficult to, as it were, in relation to any individual college or individual request to depart from an overall kind of global plan that the Minister has to observe. But I'll certainly communicate, though, what the Deputy has said to Minister Quinn. And it is quite clear there's a very difficult time for staff and for students who are involved in the college, and I think that everybody's thoughts has to, in the first instance, be with them, because it's a very human situation facing people in a situation where there's to be a closing down of an institution, indeed any third-level institution. So I would hope and I'd expect that the interests of students are kept to the fore of the arrangements that are being undertaken by the college. And I think the department has welcomed the fact that they intend to wind down in a phased basis in order to facilitate as much as possible the completion of student studies. But in the meanwhile, I do undertake to communicate on to the Minister the issues that the Deputy has raised in this context.